Hello and welcome to this wood turning tutorial. Today we're going to be turning a chess piece. A chess piece is a good example of turning between centres. Gives a number of good challenges for the wood turner. Gives some design challenges and is a nice, simple, small project to start with. So this is my lathe and what we are going to do is base our design on something fairly commercially available, a pawn, a chess piece. It has a small sphere, has a few hollows, a few beads, various details along the way. So we might use that as a starting point for a drawing. And for my stock today, I'm going to use some old curtain rod, some hardwood curtain rod, which I've cut into smaller sections, enough to be able to hold within the jaws of the scroll chuck. It's just over an inch in diameter, and that will form the basis of our work today. So with that in mind, I do a drawing that's going to have the essential items, and I've done a bit of basic geometry where I've divided into quarters and tried to keep things fairly geometric and in principle. We're going to be using the detail gouge quite a bit today, sometimes called the fingernail gouge, for much of our detailed work. We'll also use what's called a parting tool. That is used to part off, and it's also used to bring things down to the correct diameter. And we'll also use the roughing gouge. Those are the three tools that we're going to use. So I've got my work now in between centres. I give it a bit of a spin to see that it's spinning correctly before just firmly locking it into place. Seems to be running fairly truly, and therefore we're right to get started. So I just see that it's a perfect cylinder by using the roughing gouge very lightly. It's already a cylinder, so it doesn't take much to bring it down to the perfect cylinder. Thereabouts, haven't quite got it down there, but pretty close to. Now my measurements, I'm going to base it on something nice and neat and geometrical, 2 inches high, and just by sight I'll divide those into some smaller sections, just leaving a little bit at the top for waste, a bit less than 1/4 of an inch, and eyesight will allow you to do those divisions in half, just as well as a ruler will. So I take away a little bit of the waste with my parting tool. I take down some levels, so just under the collar, I know that I want to go down a fair way there, and at the bottom, below the base, I also want to give a pretty clear sense of where that is. Now just above the base section, there will be a sort of a recess, and also I want to indicate what the overall diameter of the ball at the top is. Those are the main sections. Notice that top ball section is roughly square, which is what we want it to be. And just below the ball, the sphere at the top, we have what you might call an umbrella, a collar, and I just make that a fraction bigger just to indicate where the difference between those two is. I just mark now the high point of my sphere. Now with the detail gouge on an angle, what you can do is you can use that much like many people use a skew chisel. I find the detail gouge does just as good a job, and with less risk of dig-ins or anything like that. A simple rolling motion from the high point with very little pressure, gradually rolling over so that you can hold the form of the curve as well as possible. You can do it in a few gentle strokes, or for smaller pieces you can do it fairly aggressively as you gain experience. Similarly, what I'm doing here is making a collar, something of an umbrella, and again note the angle of the detail gouge. This provides a good cutting action when doing the turning here. You're trying very much to just take off about 1/2 mil at a time, and that'll allow for good clean cuts without digging in too much, and allowing you to see the shape as you do it. Similarly, using the detail gouge here to do the hollow of the main body of the piece, and also now using the parting tool, but in much more of a scraping motion. What you'll see there, if I stopped, it would be a bit of a rougher surface. Back to the detail gouge, trying to just feather off the smallest amounts there. Down towards the base, again that ever reliable detail gouge on a full 90-degree angle is the best way to sort of mark a transition where you cut in a deep trough for your details, and a rolling motion to indicate the angles across. I'm going to dig in a little deeper here because I want to have a little additional step in my design just above the base, and just a few fine-tuning details on the base around about there. It's up to you what design you like. If you were doing a set, you'd just make sure that they were all the same and that you were happy with the design. We remove the tailstock now just so that we can take things to a finer finish. I don't think this is by any means the perfect sphere at the top, but it's going to be satisfactory for a demonstration purposes. It looks a little bit high in the middle, a little bit bumpy and lumpy. Every turner has their own natural looking sphere, and it's not my greatest gift, I must admit. Now, much of that can be improved with a bit of sanding, perhaps starting with coarse if you actually have any shaping to do. A more professional turner would do this much more diligently with the cutting tools rather than the sandpaper. The sandpaper is the lazy option at this point. And so if you want to be very, very satisfied, a little bit more patience with the cutter. Very, very, very fine cuttings will eventually get you there. With the sanding, just be careful not to lose the definition as you turn. Just stop that there so we can sort of gauge how it's looking when it's stopped. All turnings look a little bit different when they are moving around to when they're stopped. Sometimes you can completely miss a small chunk out of your wood that doesn't seem to be there until the work is stopped. Basically finished here, so I've used the parting tool to take it down to the very, very last little bit, and at that point it can be removed and sawn away. So that's our work. Thanks for watching.